Okay, so you notice the title of or the heading on there says what type of animals. Okay, so what that means is you can think of that one of two ways. Um, Whether it's radius or even radiant heat is another one. What does that mean? This school runs by radiant heat. You have boilers that run what through a whole series of pipes? Hot water. So what does that heat then do? Well, it expands and it radiates outward. So what we're talking about here is you look at these animals in one of two ways. Okay. So what type of shape do you think of when we're talking about radiate animals? That's right. Okay. If you're looking at them from the top, okay, looking at something like that, and it could be something like a jellyfish or a medusa would have some structures that you'd be able to see through. Okay. And the actual, I believe that would be called its oral disc. That's on looking at the top on down. And if you're looking at a side view, you'd be looking at something like this. So these same structures that you see hanging down would be something like this. Exactly. And what you're going to find out is these don't occur in pairs. I just draw them close together. They're going to have a whole bunch of little tiny bumps on here. Those are called nematocysts. That's probably one of your vocab terms. And then inside of those nematocysts is something called cnidocytes. And when you hear that term cytes, that's telling you like pinocytes. Pinocytes are where on a sponge? Yeah, at the surface that surround the ostia portion. So these cnidocytes then are types of cells that will produce different types of venom then. Okay? Because these are the first type of animals that we actually talk about that will envenomate their prey items. And it would be unmistakable should someone have been envenomated by that of a jellyfish. And the strange thing about that is it's the little tiny ones that are the worst. You don't necessarily go by the size of these jellyfish. They're called box or little irukandji. Just thinking probably about the size of your thumb and forward, or maybe even just your thumbnail. That's about how large these things are, but they do pack quite a punch to them. And with all of that being said, should you be stung by these in sea waters, unfortunately, what are maybe people dying from? It's not necessarily from the stings. That's going to have a secondary effect. What do you suppose that might do that could cause people to drown? They'd probably go into shock would be one, but what's going to happen to their? It's not that they lose function of their muscles, but it's going to cause them to, because some of you football players, whether it's on the college ranks or the NFL ranks, even here on Friday nights, you see a player really didn't get tackled that hard, but then they're on the ground and they're holding the backside of their hamstrings. Say that again? Cramps. So what happens is sometimes the types of stings that some of these people may get from these animals, it causes their bodies to cramp, then they can't swim, and then unfortunately down they go. So again, these are the radiate animals, and that comes from this type of term, radiating outwards. They're all circular in shape. Okay, so as we begin, like I said, we won't be spending a whole lot of time on this today. Just go to sleep already? Yep. Sure did. Cover up them neat drawings. All right. Too bad I don't, Gesundheit. Too bad I don't have more of these, because you're going to see a little flash of light go shooting up along here, and it's worth the price of admission. There it goes. Watch, watch quick. I don't know. I don't see these types of selections for slides anymore. So we're talking about these radiate animals. Okay? Again, it's what radiates from the outside. It's circular in shape. All right. So just like we were talking about, these cnidocytes, those are in those little type of bumps that we would call nematocysts. Now, one of the questions that you didn't know that was going to be on your exam yesterday, it's handwritten. Describe some of the characteristics of the phylum Porifera. Here again, you're going to have to be able to describe what are some characteristics of the phylum Cnidaria. And here is one. It's a characteristic of the phylum that they have stinging organelles. They have stinging organelles and they have stinging cells. Those are what we call cnidocytes. So here again, you're going to have three classes. It says there's four, but we only discussed three of them. There's your first one, class Hydrozoa. Now you might be thinking to yourself, we just kind of discussed corals. Well, these animals do something that's kind of significant that doesn't occur very often through the animal kingdom. And that would be the idea that, what's the best, like let's say you break open a manure pile. Little white things moving around inside of there are what? Those are maggots. Do they stay in that life cycle all throughout, or do they maybe change? Yeah, change into what? Right. So that's a process we call dimorphism, okay, where they're going to change from one body form to another. These animals do that exact same, well, not that exact same thing, but something similar. They start out as a coral, and they don't change into a Portuguese man of war. A better term would be that of a medusa, okay? And it's very similar to that of a jellyfish. The reason that we want to categorize it like that is, we said the first thing we're going to talk about through this chapter is we start with movement. Well, that's not going to be the case when they start out in this life form, but when they go through dimorphism into that of a medusa, that's a free swimming creature. That's where we're going to start to have some of this movement. And in order to move, that's created by what? Even in mammals and humans. What causes us to move? And in order for that muscle to move, something has to tell it to do that. Yeah. Not necessarily, we'll say nervous tissue, okay? So with that, we're going to see some of the first types of movement by what we call a neuromuscular system. So Hydrozoa is the first class. Scyphozoa, as you can see, they're born as a jellyfish, okay? They may change slightly, but for the most part, they're born as a jellyfish. And then finally, the sea flowers we call class Anthozoa. We ask that for every junior who entered. Did you pass? So it's not something totally unique. For chemistry, go to Mr. Williamson's room, please. In Del Rapids, cross-country meet. I like the confidence in that, but might do well, but I don't know if we'll quite do that well. Appreciate the enthusiasm. We'll see. Never know. We shall see. Well, I suppose you'd have to go with. Yeah. We will pick up with you next time.